Good morning, everyone. Well, it's 12 p.m. here, so good evening. I hope everyone is doing all right. And we're gonna have
Good
morning, everyone. Well, that's out. There we go. I'm gonna be diving into the coins again, especially Bitcoin, which has been ripping us a bit. First, I'm just gonna remove all of the alerts. Got a bunch. Okay, let me just go over the coin real quick. In fact, let's remove a bunch and restart over. Oh. Except the levels, I'm just gonna keep the levels there. Anything else? No, don't think so. So, diving into the 3 days, perhaps? Yeah, let's dive into the 3 days. We are still in an uptrend with Bitcoin in general. Higher highs, higher lows. We have made this all-time high in here, which, let's put that in the middle. Let's give it a nice color, yeah. Light blue. Yeah, perfect. Making that all-time high, the momentum of the higher highs have been lowered, which means that, you know, there's a slight chance of continuation down. But since that we made that higher high in here, there's a big possibility to go back to the lows, fill the gaps, and continuation up. Especially, well, I think for sure 94 and maybe 85 will be that point. And we basically have to close above in order for Bitcoin to continue up. And I still believe that Bitcoin could end up somewhere around here, let's say 160, 180K by maybe end of the year. So I'm still positive. However, right now, diving into Bitcoin, I just really think we're gonna go down for a while. And with a while, I mean like possibly, yeah, for maybe 2 months, let's say. Where we can go down like 20% in general. So as long as we create those higher lows, we're fine. However, if we're diving down and we're going to be closing below 80K, well, maybe, yeah, closing below, let's say 77K, then we have our indication. Indication will most likely happen, like, you know, when it happens, we will most likely get a lower high as well, which will be our indication confirmation price to go down. So as of right now, I am bearish. And if we're diving into the days, like, I am on the big screen again. I'll just restart real quick. Sorry, guys. if we're diving into the 3 days, we are still making the higher highs, higher lows. And we got this all-time high set now, which made sure that the momentum of the higher highs reduced. So all of the higher highs were a big pump. So let's say this was a big pump, this was a big pump, and eventually we got back on the trend line and created a new all-time high, but the momentum of it is not that big. If Bitcoin would continue, like if it would have continued this momentum, it would have been going over here, most likely. But because that didn't happen, the new item high is set, the momentum has been lowered. Let me close the window real quick. All right. So because of this momentum, I think price will go down a bit and possibly break the trend that has been going up for a year even. But I'm still bearish on this, as long as it creates that higher low in here or in here. If it doesn't and it breaks below this area, then most likely price will go down even further, and then I'll be talking about 40, like 60 or 40k. But let's hope it doesn't go that way, because I still believe that Bitcoin will go up to, let's say, 180, 160, this area over here. So if we're going to be diving into the 1 day, since April, beginning of April, we've been going into an uptrend. And if we draw the line from it, and we set the trend line, I don't like this color. Yeah, this is fine. Then we see that this trend has been broken. And most of the times whenever a trend gets broken, and I'll write it down like here. So if Bitcoin or any price breaks below that trend line and creates that lower low, it will always go for a retest, hopefully on this gap. We hit the entry, like we hit the gap, continuation down, create that lower low. And doing this as well will make sure that this will also create that lower high. So we have the indication that price will shift, like it broke the trend in the first place. That's one of the indications that we use. So it broke the trend. The first indication as well is the first lower low. So we got indication, and then the confirmation would have been whenever price makes that lower high. And then most likely price will continue down like this eventually. Obviously patterns also matter in this kind of fact. So if we really look into it, and let me remove the arrow real quick. There we go. We can clearly see some kind of a head and shoulders. Well, you know, that confirmation as well, which is a reversal pattern. Like price comes from the bottom, makes that head and shoulders. So price will most likely go back down. Personally, I was waiting for, let's make the gap. Personally, I was waiting for the retest over here on the 1 day gap. However, we had a big resistance over here, which made sure that that didn't happen. So we missed that basically. And in one day it touched that resistance and then continued down. You could also see like a double top in here, however you want to trade it, you know, double top, retest, continuation down. There are many patterns that, you know, lead this way eventually. And if you zoom out, it's pretty easy to see. Just draw a line, because that trend has been going up and up and up. Eventually, price has to come down. So if we dive into the 1 day, we have made these gaps, and with these gaps I basically mean that it has a big impulse up or down. So this big impulse up will always, like most of the time, wants to be closed, where it fills the gap and continued going away. Same here, where we had a big impulse down, price wanted to retest but just failed. So this gap has been open for quite some while and is now closed. And if you're opening a trade or anything, then a gap like this would have been your TP. Would have been a perfect TP, in fact. So right here, this isn't a gap, but it has some momentum and volume in it. If we, oh, I lost it, sorry. Where was it? Okay, here. So let's circle this real quick and then zoom in. Okay, there we go. So we had some volume in here, and by the looks of it, this created an area of interest. So if we drag that all the way down, that area of interest has been hit perfectly. And if we draw a 1 hour line on the gap from the 1 hour and remove this, you see that it hit that 1 hour gap, perfect entry. And if you dive into that gap, basically, it created a new gap. So this price got close as well. And for me personally, I like to wait before I get confirmation that, you know, price will most likely switch. So whenever this happens, I'm not gonna open a trade straight on this. I need confirmation first. So you can draw this line on the 1 hour that I just removed earlier, and then wait for the confirmation. And as you see, price went up there and created a new gap on the 1 hour. Most of the times whenever price comes from the top, it wants to create a pattern to reverse the price, goes up, retest, continued up, right? In this case, people like, there are many people trading patterns like this, and they basically enter on the retest, I mean on the neckline, which is over here, where you also created that double bottom again. But in my eyes, you're a bit late by that. And whenever you see a response from a gap that happened, price goes up, makes a higher high. So this trend down got broken, so it made that higher high in here. Price could go down, but we have this new gap that has been created. So for this moment, if I'm really going to be looking into this, I see that this is a 1 hour gap. So what we could do, we could set up an entry here, a long entry. On that 1 hour gap, we place the stop loss a bit below the low. And let's see how it goes. Okay, so it hit our entry and continued up. And there's so many strategies on trading, you know, on basically trading this. And I call it gap trading or whatever you want to call it, but I combine it with levels. I combine it with market structure because I want to see higher highs and higher lows being broken before like there's a big change of character, you know? So in this case, Bitcoin really made that bottom, and also in combination with the trend line that we already had going on. Let's grab this one. Oh, I am making a mistake here. Okay, so we had this trend already going, so most likely price would either go down into here where we have this 1 day gap still, but because of that trend line happening, we see that price could possibly go down there. We see there is a volume area over here, which if you dive into on the 1 hour, you see there's volume and, you know, an area of interest. So you combine all of these together, and I start zoomed out because I still see that uptrend going up with the potential of price continue going up. But what I also see now is that the momentum from those higher highs has been reduced. And then zoomed in again on the 1 day, you see that uptrend being broken. So a possibly retest on these lows or these lows is very high right now. In combination with that, you know, head and shoulders, double top, blah, blah, blah. All of that bullshit. So right now we broke through and created this lower low. Well, we already had that, you know, break of structure anyway, but it really created that lower low now. So what we could expect is price to go close this gap, or even, you know, accept the level and then continuation down. Or, no, there's no or. Like we had a change of character, so most likely price will continue going down now. And create that lower low over here. Well, it will test that lower. So, yeah, I'm saying that Bitcoin could go to 94 at least in the next coming 2 months or so. Because eventually we have to test this again for continuation up. Price has to do this to continuation. Okay. So I am looking for a short either on this level at 103.750 or at 105.500, and let's place those down. All right, just place the stop loss just above that high here. And another one over here. Doing this will also be a bit more risky, or, you know, you just use less leverage in order to have the same risk. However, there's a big chance of Bitcoin tapping the 1-day gap and then continue down. But over here as well, on the neckline of that double top here, it had that bounce over here. So this was the best location to short, right here. And right now we are also on that neckline of that head and shoulders. So I have made an order for 103,750 and I might have hit already. I am not 100% sure. Did it? It almost did. Okay. So I have these two areas where I will be looking into short. Because like I said before, price will most likely go and retest the 94th like this. Okay. Yeah, I really hoped for Bitcoin to either touch this, continue down. Let's just, draw the line basically. Let's say we're gonna be filling the gap, okay? Then we have the lower low again. Retest on this level, hopefully. And let's say we just hit that gap straight away. This is what I would like to see. And I've been waiting already. Like, I've been going short since here as well. Even on the top of 1010 maybe. Not 100% sure where I went short, but obviously I closed it, and that's what I do. I do day trading or swing trading, but I don't trade for that long. Basically, I am too impatient to wait that long. Okay, so right now I want to dive into a bit more coins on request as well. So if you are watching, feel free to drop a coin that you wish to see a TA on, and I will make that. And those TAs that I'm making, I will be sharing them on our Discord, which is currently free. Well, it is free, and we also have a gold section, but my TAs are free for the next coming 2 weeks until the 18th. So make sure to use those. And use me as well for that moment. So I will be diving into a couple coins. See, we also had the same things happening on SUI, and obviously whenever Bitcoin goes, most other coins will go as well. Let's remove this. However, I don't really like to trade on coins which has barely any information, so barely any data. Like Bitcoin has a couple years of data where you can trade on and see the gaps, and well, other coins like SUI don't have that. So going into the 1 days, I am just fixing the gaps real quick. And I wanted for SUI to hit that gap here as well. But just like Bitcoin, it didn't happen. And just like Bitcoin, it also created that kind of double top in here, where you have a bunch of wicks on the daily, in which it closed. So if you wanted to go short, the best opportunity here would most likely be somewhere around here. But yeah, you can't always score 6, And I will show you a couple others that we just missed the train on, sadly. But right now, we got the 1 day close in here. We got the other 1 days open, and well, it's pretty hard to see the levels now because there's not much data at all. So let's create this a level as well. And we still have this uptrend. So if we draw the uptrend, so you have a fair value gap in here, which didn't get closed, and this is what I mean by fair value gap. So you have these 3 candles here, and this wick closed over here and this wick closed over here, which means that in between those 2 candles there's still a gap formed on the daily. So price could either go into here, continue back up, create that higher high, or and let's use this drawing here with us because it could break just like Bitcoin. So if it so if it does something like this and then continues down, close this gap, so it could either be a trade from over here, but it could also be a short from over here because this new gap was created. So these are 2 potentials to go short on, just like Bitcoin. But I do like the fact that there is a level here as well, and there might be another level here as well if you dive into it. But yeah, so these 2 potentials are there for Sui. 2 potentials to go short on, and I am a bit autistic, so I will fix this. And let's round this up to 80. And eventually it wants to close the gap over here at 1670. All right, this was Sui. Let's remove this and don't use it. We create this into the, not the neckline, the trend line. There we go. Okay. Yeah, so we we missed the train on Trump. Big time. Very big time. Holy crap. So I wanted to short Trump as well from over here at the gap, but it didn't hit the entry as well. It didn't even go for the level that we had placed. And this is also, it's already there. So these 2 I had open as well. Just give me a sec, guys. So let's dive into it. Let's remove the alerts again. All right, so we have this downtrend happening and this uptrend that got broken. So trend line, this is not needed. and we have these open gaps on Trump at the moment. By the way, I don't trade news, so you know, news might have impact on the price nowadays, but I don't particularly trade on it. So this one got closed, so and this trend line is still going down. Potential towards over here. And now we have to really dive into it, because sometimes whenever a pattern got made like this double bottom, that neckline is still valid, can still, you know, have some kind of impact. So if we draw a box from that neckline into the gap, this is a area of interest where I think personally that, you know, it would hit that gap on $8.3. Let's just draw this down a bit. So most likely Trump price will go down to 8.3. And yes, you could enter here. I mean, you could enter and then, you know, potentially continue going to 8.3. However, you're way too late. Price could potentially go back and hit that trend line and retest this level, which I just saw. But it's risky, and you're in the trade late. So you either have to manage it or just don't trade at all, because trading is waiting. Okay. So this is Trump. And like I said, there's barely any other data on it. So diving more deeper into these prices, this is all the data we have. So most likely price will just go back here and then create that new uptrend, hopefully. So what you could be doing, a potential long can be made in here, and then obviously you have your TP over here, a TP over here, and a TP over here, potential going towards the 18. But that's a risky one. First we need to see a response, like is it going to respond on it, let it go up, let it retest, and jump into that trade there. Because just like Bitcoin, what I spoke about earlier, you have the same things happening with other coins, where you have the 1 day gap, I mean the 1 hour gap, perfect entry over here, beam bada boom. Even here with a wick you entered with a potential, like you made that entry over here, made it higher high, still a higher low, trend going up, breaking here. You could, you know, left that trade from this gap that didn't close. But then you see this low creating a level. So you could close it based on the gap and that level. And for me personally, I like to be safe, so I'm always a bit before the gap. And now diving into it a bit deeper, we had that first response of Trump coin on this 1 hour gap. There we go, just with a wick. And that wick came from this candle even, but it still had that, you know, area of interest here because of it. but I don't think that this 1 hour gap is strong enough. I think it really wants to go to 8.3. Okay, so this is, whoa, sorry. This is Trump. Let's move this, no, let's move this one over here. Stop loss below the low. And we have this potential other gap as well. So be aware of this one as well. Like I said, wait for that confirmation and then enter on that retest of this trend breakout. Because if you're diving into all of the coins and diving into the coins deeper, you see that it made that lower low, retested it, and then continued down. So these are the moments you need to pay attention with. All right, let's dump into near. Oh, what a mess this was. So removing these and this as well. This one day got closed. And this was based on the entry on the neckline, but also over here you had that gap, this gap, entry, perfect moonshot into this gap on the day. And if you zoom out even more a bit, you know, it broke that trend, and I was hoping for, you know, it broke this trend line. So this trend line. So it broke that, and I wanted a retest on this 1 day gap for continuation up. And doing this also created that new trend line. And eventually what will happen is this trend line gets broken, retest. This trend line gets broken, retest. And that's going to happen more than you think. And then eventually you have this trend line as well happening at the moment, which is still valid, or yeah, valid, that's the right word. So it could have had a good bounce on this old daily with that wick entry here. So going long on this is still valid in my eyes. But then I want to see, okay, how is it responding? Okay, so you have a possibly long entry over here. This is a possible trade, diving into it a bit deeper. Let's put it just a bit closer. So you're in between this gap and this gap. So let's make that bigger, 1 hour. And then on the 1 hour, I mean the 1 day, let's dive into that a bit further. We will be making the new daily gaps. That's a gap. This is a level, this is a level. This could be a bit more down. If there are any coins on request, like, please just ask them and I will dive into them. I'm just going over a list that I think have potentials, and I got a bunch. But yeah, so this is near, and then let's see if it's going to break this trend line and create that higher high continuation up. This is what we want. And if it makes that higher high, eventually we could go down. So based on this, you need to wait for your confirmation. If it's retracing like this over here, wait for that retest to go short. Okay. And this is still followed as well, and then you have the at the $1 as well. So wait for the confirmation on trading this. Let's dive into Chill, and I am mad at Chill because I just missed the boat. Look at how close we were missing this trade on the short. I was saying that price will go up, retest this neckline, and obviously it didn't really happen. So I have my entry placed on this level, but if you're diving a bit deeper, these wicks would have been the perfect entry for that short all the way towards this gap on the daily, 0.5211. This level has been broken, so what we could eventually see now is we have this new gap, and it's it's pretty simple trading this based on gaps and levels and seeing how market structure works, because you have the trend line. I wanted the retest over here on this price action, but that didn't happen yet. But I also saw this one coming. I had this this gap placed already with a potential, you know, a demand that price wanted to go there. And then it created a double top, retest, continuation down. So yeah, if you were in this trade from let's say over here, congrats, really. So what I think price will do now is hit that gap, continuation down, try and find balance on this gap, and if it doesn't and it makes that lower low, retest, continuation down to the 0.03260. Fartcoin, same situation. However, over here we had that line on the neckline and it hit it perfectly. And so this one is closed now. So let's draw it like this, closed. So we still have this gap open over there. This is a 1 hour gap, well that got closed as well. So right now we have the new daily gap. Remove the alerts, we don't need them. And this was the, you know, the short that I wanted as well. But it could potentially still do it, because if we regain this high, we could potentially make that reversed head and shoulders go up, hit that entry, and then go down again. That's, you know, those two things are possible. So you have to wait on the gap to happen and see, okay, how is it responding? So if we want to go short on the new gap again for continuation down, I mean, we could, but if it doesn't make that lower low, like if it doesn't, let's say we enter here, yeah, and price doesn't make that lower low, so price could, you know, is waiting over here, be alerted and stay on it, have a tight stop loss in your profit, because it's potentially going to create that head and shoulders, the reversed head and shoulders. And I don't trade on, you know, I don't really trade on patterns, but I use them to my advantage in case, like, you know, in this situation. So we had that break of structure created at lower low, and now we need to continue doing these lower lows in order for price action to continue down. If it doesn't, and it makes that higher high, or you know, it hits this gap perfectly, goes down, but it doesn't make that lower low over here, then potentially Ford coin could go up and retest these two gaps. That's very potential here. So be aware whenever you're going to be trading on Ford. I know, Dave, if you're going to to watch this stream again, keep a close eye on it. So let's draw two potentials. Tick, 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 tick. Potential number one. Or, well, my mistake. Or something like this. Yeah. And yeah, this is just very potential, guys. It's very possible. Let's make this one into a red one and this one into the green one to say, okay, we have these two situations, possibilities. But again, you have to keep a close eye on this price action here, on the new gap that it has been creating. Hey, Jure. Thanks for the likes. Let's dive into Ethereum. So I will pick a old TA that I've made on Ethereum. Give me a sec, guys. I'm almost there. Yeah, okay. Jump to it. Copy image. So in April 25, I created this TA. And you can see here, oh well, April 2023, April, or whatever you call it. I don't care. We saw that it was compressing down into a falling wedge, and eventually price had to break this trend line, right? However, this was a big area of interest where price even went down a bit and then broke through. I think, let's confirm that. No, it didn't. So it just had some trouble going through. Eventually, price went sideways and then continued up. And I was waiting for the price to break that 1.8, basically, the 1800. Because that was a very important level or gaps, combination of these. And eventually price went all the way up to that gap, if we're going to dive into it now. So I'm just gonna go over the gaps real quick. Let's remove these and this one. So this is also still there. So my potential, we have this gap over here that has been closed. No, I'll keep it this way. So this gap has been closed when we went up. However, this could still be a potential on a reversal. So yeah, I'm just gonna keep it like this because it has broken. It has broken through. The price could go down and retest either this area or the gap that we draw. Because whenever we have this big impulse up, let it retest for continuation. And if you zoom out a bit like this, we had this perfect break out of the trend line. Trend line. Now I want to see Ethereum retesting that low for continuation up. And last time that I did a TA on this, it had these three. Well, this is a 4 time where we see here it created a higher high, but here a big lower high, and then eventually a good lower low. So a potential short for Ethereum. There you go. Into this new gap on 1.57 T. Let's drop it down to 17. Okay, and as you can see, yes, it has this gap in here. So let's hopefully hit that, reverse down, and then continue back up. And if it does break through this supply, aka the 1 day gap in here, and I see we have another there. So if we do break through and make that higher higher eventually here, so this is potential number 1. Let's make it red, because price will go down eventually. And then let's say price will be making that higher high from here. We could see it going up like this and potential going towards that 4K. Again, let's make this green. There we go. And this is just, you know, eventually over here as well, you have this 1 hour gap. If it hits it and doesn't make that higher high, then this is a perfect short, because this is the gap on the 1 hour. Could be a perfect short, which is why we have this. Whenever you trade this, manage it. You can either open a order already, but make sure you use a stop loss in case it does make that higher high. Okay. Then we have Ripple, and I don't trade on the news of Ripple because then, you know, 10 years ago you had to enter or something. But we have the same situation as that Ethereum had. See? So let's remove the alarms that I had. There we go. So if I'm diving into it a bit deeper, let's fill in the 1 day gaps. This is, by the way, very smart and easy to use. Just template, save as, and you know, it gives you the things that you have set on. Saves you a lot of time making TAs like this. So it closed this. This is still an area of interest. People call it golden pocket. So let's just say area of interest. No, I'm not gonna keep it that way. I'm just gonna draw this line here. Because yes, it got closed in here, but it will still matter in here. Trust me, it will. So what we had this trend line broken, trend line, and we had this other trend line as well, trend line. So on the daily, this one got closed and this one got closed. So let's remove this one real quick. Look at how perfectly it hit that that daily gap, and we have one other one in here for if it doesn't break through now, which I will just talk in a minute. So we had that breakout where we made the first higher high over here. You know, we made a solid higher high, and then we retested the breakout. Best would have been to retest over here. I mean, this was still a good entry. However, this wick would have been a bit more perfect. Then your long would have been, let's say, something like this. And because it didn't broke through that level eventually on the daily, you have this new trend line, which went over here. It didn't break here. Close your trade or go short or take a bit off, whatever you want to do. And if it doesn't create that higher high, go short on it like this. And let me just dive into the bit deeper so it's easier to read and see. So eventually we stopped out on the level, we jumped out there, so it didn't really make that higher high in here. It did close this gap on the 1 hour. Closed. And let's remove this. So let's say it didn't close eventually, like it didn't make a higher high, but it did close this gap. We exit and re-enter on retest after we saw it going down again. So let's say we exit over here, yeah? We see price has been going down and following the trend line down, basically, making the lower low and the lowest lows. And eventually over here, you could have opened that short to go back to the area of interest, which is the gap that only has been hit with a wick, where you could potentially have been going long again. See how I dive into it and then it making sense? And if it doesn't, feel free to ask anything. I would love to explain it to you. So 1 day glow and 1 day gap, 1 day gap. We have another one over here. So this is a area where you might want to take some might want to take a bit of profit. But if it breaks through here, well, most likely price will go like this, tick, 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 retest over here, and continue up to create that higher high. I like this setup, which is why I went long. And for me to confirm my long, I want to see it close above this level. And eventually I have a TP set on this 1 day gap, because if it doesn't break, like I can wait and manage it. But if I'm going to sleep and it hits that gap and then drops down when I wake up, then I'm losing stuff. So I prefer personally to take a bit of profit with a potential of price continue going up, instead of taking no profit and then having to close the trade with a loss. It has two mental things. Like, if price continued, you're like, oh shit, why didn't I kept all of it in? Because then my win rate would have been a bit more money. But on the other side, if it did close that gap and continued downwards, you would have said, why didn't I take a bit of profit? That's just a mental game. You can also save yourself that whenever you're in this long already and it's gaining your momentum and it's doing what you want, feel free to put that stop loss in the profit just in case. But don't forget, trading on a daily chart and trading on like a 3-minute or 50-minute chart is very different on how this works. I mean, you can do the same and make sure that you are profitable, but also you need to give some trades a bit of space in order to evolve, right? So this is my XRP Ripple setup trade, where I have a potential of going towards the $3 again, but personally I think this 3.74 ish will be a nice nice trade setup. And if it doesn't break over here now, we could have enter over here for a possible break, or price will continue going down and over here we can long. See, I'm just trading the gaps, and on the long term these gaps are filling like a maniac. Next one, Gala. I am still going to add this one in here simply because it will still have value. 1 day gap, 1 day gap, 1 day gap. This, let's add it. So in here, there you have point of interest to watch. Let's draw a trend line from the up and the second, where we have a 3 touch point basically. Not a neckline, I want the trend line. There we go. So diving into it on the hourly, I think on the hourly, yeah, we had this trend up, broke through, made that higher high, good fake, but eventually dropped down and continued down. So if price would have gone down in here and breaking the trend that we had drawn, then shorting over here, perfect entry for the short on the 1 hour. But we're going to be diving into the 1 day for now, where eventually with that 1 hour thing that I made, the 1 hour TA, this was my potential on closing the gap for the long, which happened perfectly. Like, I'm not placing these afterwards, I'm placing these in advance, just like the Ethereum that I just showed you earlier. These are just the potentials on closing, because price will do this, and you have people trading VWAP, people trading support and resistance, but eventually gaps will close. It's yeah, easier than this isn't really possible. I'm using fairly basic and simple market structure, higher highs, higher lows, trend line, gaps, and that's it. Oh yeah, and then I use the patterns and the rest in extra. Like, I'm not using any indicator at all. There's no need for indicators, because indicators will always be late. It could give you a confirmation, so you can use it for a confirmation, but don't trade based on an indicator. Don't trade when an indicator says buy now. Please listen to what I say. Just don't. What I would like to see from Gala now is to create that higher high and continue up. And just like the other coins, there's always a potential on going short on the gap for a retail. You know, maybe it's going to create that head and shoulders again, maybe even like this. But be careful, wait for your confirmation. And yes, you could short it. Why don't you just hedge it, you know? Keep this long, set a potential short for a retest, close your short, and continue that long. There are many ways to trade on this. As long as, if you have a good entry, don't add marching at a point of interest where price could reverse, because your entry will be here. If your first entry was here and you're going to add marching right over here because you think, yeah, this wick has been making, like, the candle didn't close yet, but yeah, it's over here now, so price will continue going up. No, wait for your confirmation. If it retests on your point of interest, then you could add a bit of marching. But if you're going to be adding it in here, your entry will be here. And if price continues going down and, you know, it didn't create a higher high, but instead it created this lower low, you are screwed. Harder than this don't really have to be looked in, right? Let's make this a trend line. It broke through. Nice retest. There you go. I don't even have levels on this because it's not needed, right? Yeah, there's a level over here based on how many times the price had hit this price, you know. Hello? Yeah. And maybe in here as well. So it will have difficulty going to break here because there are two levels. So this level needs to be broken in order for continuation. It's that simple. Make that higher high. Trade safe. Undo. Yep. We missed it. So, well, we can still get it, you know. Trend line. Trend line. 1 day gap. 1 day gap, 1 day gap. Let's also add this one as a 1 day gap. So this gap got closed. This gap got closed. And look how perfect we had this gap closed. Perfect entry. Again, we had this trend line on the hourly as well. So whenever I'm trading or looking into a coin, I'm looking, okay, this price is, you know, making a trend. The more it touches, the more likely that it will be breaking. What do we have open still on the daily? Because on the bigger time frame, price will go there. We have this gap still open. So if this trend breaks, short it until the gap, enter in a long and on the gap. It's that simple. Going back into the 1 day. This trend line we don't need because this is the trend that we're having. Right now we have this downtrend. I want to see it get broken. So, what do we have open still? We have this gap created. And obviously most of the coins are a lookalike. So you want the higher high, continuation up for a break. This is a break. This is a short setup for this break that happened over here. So this is invalid at the moment. And we want this trend line to be broken, create that higher high, and then we can look further. Okay, what can we expect from price to do now? Okay. So, making the drawing again. Butts, 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 butts. And if it doesn't, and it holds this trend line, we can create that lower low. Oh, you know, then price will create that lower low eventually. Retest, continuation down on, let's say, yeah, this gap. And you have this one as well, which is why place it in the middle. Ta-da. Let's dive into one more coin for this. Let's remove. Again, same situation. Entry on the long. Even like this. Perfecto. And zoomed out, obviously. We have this trend line. And this as well, but it's not really necessary. 1 hour gap, let's remove it. 1 hour gap, let's remove it. Oh, let's make this a 1 day gap. I said let's make this a 1 day gap. And this as well. Here we got another one. And we can draw this one to the left. 1 day. And this is also a 1 hour gap, if I am correct. Yes, it is. Easier than this you will not find anywhere. And if you wonder how I learned this stuff, I followed the course of my brother, and currently we are working together for this, where I'm doing the TAs and streams, and he is been giving courses and also taking trades and whatever. So we are both into this basically big time. But yeah, he taught me, and like, it's this simple, and you can do the 1 day tradings like this, like the 1 day charts, and then trade along, you know. So if you see like in a day, let's say we are breaking out here, for example. No, in fact, let's use this trend line here. So we saw this trend line being broken. Well, we saw it coming earlier because it made that lower high. So this was a perfect indication and / or confirmation that price will go down. And combine it with this trend line that we drew from this point to that point, continue down. Nice touch. Eventually you could have entered short on this gap, stop loss be above the high, and it could even be this high. Going towards the first gap, let's focus the second gap, because if we trade, we want to, you know, make most out of it. Bitcoin just hit the 750, by the way, so I'm in my short with a small marching because I'm waiting for the confirmation. So what I'm doing with whenever I'm going into a trade now, I am in this short. It just hit a sec ago on the 150. And I'm waiting for confirmation now. And if I don't have confirmation, I am going to exit. And if I have confirmation that price will continue going down, I'm going to add marching on the area of interest, which is basically something like this. You know, price goes down, creates that lower low, creates that lower high, I add marching. And yes, this could potentially also make that higher high in here for this gap to be closed, which is why I have a close eye on it. Because this 108 is still open for me. So this is option red. And this is option green. Tick, tick, tick. Create that lower high, continue down. Well, second option. See? Going back into ADA. I'm gonna watch that back and gonna be embarrassed. So on this ADA trade, ADA, Cardano, what's it? Cardano, right? Yeah, Cardano. I am waiting for the confirmation. Well, I'm in the trade, I think. I am. I want to see it create that higher high. But therefore, I am also taking a close eye on Bitcoin, which is currently pushing through that 750. So Bitcoin could potentially go over here, close the gap, and then continuation down. And if it makes that higher high in here, the other coins will as well. Which is why we need to have a close eye on those shorts. You need to manage your trades like this. This is my potential break. And if it doesn't break, you have a nice short over there. Do I really have to? I'll place it like this. Potential on this long will be into the 1.1. All of this is still valid. Oh, guys, look at how easy the one-day gap is. Here, entry long. Look where it went. Up over there. Entry long. Look where it went. Again, up over there. Well, this went towards this one here. Okay. But still, if you kept in it, or you re-entered on the same price action, just a wick. And then again, over like now, where it went up into this level. So let's draw that level there. Yeah, here. Template level. Another nice entry, just from this close on the daily. Like 3 perfect entries. Entry. Let's remove this. No, we're gonna keep it. Okay. Maybe I will stream on Sunday as well. Just not promising anything at the moment. And I'm diving in one more coin, which is ZBCN. And this coin has a potential big short. Like there's no much data. All of it is just all-time highs. And a break of a trend. Trend line break. Very ugly one, I have to admit. But on the 1 hour, perfect trend line, which broke. And look at what happened here. So we had this gap, yeah? The 1 hour gap, let's say. It's this one. Price broke through. Retested. Then the hour started in here. Price went up, hit our entry, and then went down. So whenever this break happens, place that gap in there. And yes, you have another one in here. But how difficult is it to place an order on the first gap and maybe another one in case it takes a bit longer and price to go do this, you know? Perfect short into the next 1 hour gap. And I am only doing the TA with a 1 hour here because the 1 day here is just, you know, it's just, there's just no data at all. So trading on the 1 hour with this gives more data. And what it did now is, I'll remove the arrows and I'll start over here, is so it closed this gap on the 1 hour. So let's place that here. Close. We have this other one still open. But in the meanwhile, we created the first low. Eventually we made it higher high, higher low, higher high, and then price broke down again. Lower low, indication. Price went up, made that lower high, confirmation. We're in a downtrend based on these two lows. So if we put the replay over here, we see this. We draw the trend line into these 2 points, make it a trend line. And what are we expecting now? Okay, so we had this close in here. Let me just do it this way and remove these. Now I'm gonna keep them. Just gonna make this one blue. So what happened now? We had this entry on the wick for a possible long, because this was an indication, and the confirmation for me would have been either to price to go back here because you have some sort of a level here, or potential for here. Well, eventually we see the response from over here, so close your long immediately, because most likely it didn't make that higher high. Most likely price will go down again. And what happened? price did go down. And eventually, on the 1 hour, created another lower low. So zoomed in, it created a small uptrend, but it broke down again, following the new trend line, which we broke a bit. But again, so let's remove the trend line for now. And in fact, let's draw a new trend line. So it didn't make that higher high. So this trend line has been adjusted now. And this gap got filled again, went through. So most likely, oh, we're out of the replay already. So most likely, this price either has to break from here. And if we see on the 50-minute, it didn't close this gap yet. Not perfectly, let's say. On the 15th. It didn't. So most likely, this price will still continue down in order to retest these two on the 15-minute time frame. And zoomed out, I don't think it will. I think it will create a new lower low, and then we have this 1 hour gap. So this is still the area of interest. So I'm shorting here on this coin. Well, all of the other coins, except this one, all of the coins are in green, except CBCN. And these are coins that are, you know, different to Bitcoin. So whenever Bitcoin is going up, I can look into a coin like this and go short. So my potential here is to create that lower low into this 1 hour gap. And let's check the 2 hour. Yeah, the 2 hour gap is also still here. Then we have another one here. Let's see the 1 hour. How many gaps do we have here? Yeah, we can add one more gap in here. So these are potentials for shorts. And let's say price does break this trend. Where do we go? 1 hour. Let me remove this, by the way. This is a 1 hour as well. And this is a 1 day. Okay, let's keep it that way. No, 1 hour. All of them are 1 hour, so let's keep it that way with this one. Same for this. 1 hour, not 4 hours. Or 1 hour gap. So right now, if you go long, which is still possible, and price breaks through the trend line, first TP, second TP, and focusing on the third TP. Because if it does, like what we want to see here is to create that higher high, a change of character. And if it doesn't, and it does this, and it closes here, this could be a short for this gap to be closed. See? Okay. So for this coin, this is a green. A green scenario where this is a 15, so 15 min. Mm, 15 min. Let's place it on the right side. So this is potential for CBCN. Oh, and this is what I'm looking for. If it does break, true. Now that I'm diving into it a bit more, we are on a level. So this could be interesting here. Are we going to break out? Are we going to break out? Make a higher high? Or... well, fuck it. Or are we going to create the lowers? It's a interesting point of interest. You know what I mean. So let's dive one more time into Bitcoin. It's having trouble going through on the 1 hour for now. Let's see how it goes. On the 1 hour, this is open. And on the daily, this is open. So let's see if the neckline or the level will be enough to reverse or not. Okay. Potentials. This was my original short that I really wanted. The 1.8 something. Yeah, 1.87. 1.8.8, sorry. Yeah. So let's see, are we going to drop down, create that lower low again? Because this is still, like, this is a neckline, you see? So this head and shoulders is that neckline. For some, it is, like, all of this combined could be a good short. And if it's not, then we can bounce back on, okay, we got the 1 day gap here. And we got the 1 day gap here. So what are we going to do? See? Okay, so I will be adding these into the Discord page. And to your understanding, these TAs are for free. This one isn't. And okay. Feel free to just join here and follow the TAs that I'm in. By the way, did they fix this wick? Yeah, they did. So there was this weird wick on TradingView with this candle, where this red candle basically had a wick all the way towards 0. It was so weird, but they fixed it, I guess, overnight. Okay, well, I'll make a summary of the trades, and I will post some TAs with potentials here. And if we have confirmation on some coins, I can drop them as well. Whenever you have another coin of interest, feel free to drop it into the Discord and I can make a TA on it. Yeah, I'm going to be closing the stream for now. And I hope to see you guys in the next time. If you want to see more of these streams, make sure to subscribe, join the Discord, possibly even just join the community, signing up by BitUnix. It's a exchange that we are sponsors with, and we have a partnership with them as well. All of it is in the description. Feel free to join whenever, wherever. Okay? Have a good one, guys, and I'll meet you on the next one. Maybe I'm gonna be streaming on Sunday again, maybe not. I will let you guys know in Discord.